Hello, welcome back to Think in the Circle. You may be thinking of doing a PhD, or at some point thought about doing a PhD, or even tried doing a PhD, and it just didn't work out for you. And you thought, there's no way I can sit down for 3 full years and do a full-time PhD, or even go through the pain of doing a part-time PhD, which could take 6 to 7 years. Now, there is an alternative, more retrospective way of getting a PhD if that's what you really wanted, and not many people know about it. That is a PhD by publication. It's also known as a PhD by published works. That's an alternative to your traditional monograph-style thesis. How does it work? Well, instead of writing a long dissertation from scratch, you would submit a collection of peer-reviewed journal articles, sometimes, depending on your area of research, conference papers even. Usually it takes about 3 to 6, and you thematically link them. You bind them together with what is called a critical introduction, ties the research together, shows some coherence, and explains your contribution to knowledge. Now, who might be thinking of doing a PhD by publication? You could be in academia for a while. You may have entered with a lot of industry experience and never managed to do a PhD. You could be an early career academic, again, without a PhD. You could be in a research type of job, and you've already have published or already publishing. It could be somebody who is a professional in areas like education, in medicine, in design, in hospitality, consultancy. Or you're thinking of starting a PhD, but part-time, for whatever reason, might not be your way of doing it. It's not your style. So, how does it work? Well, it would be a good thing if you first had a few papers. Most places will consider your enrollment if you had at least 4 papers ready. So you have written papers and you have published them in peer-reviewed journals, and you would then need to write a commentary, a narrative of around 10,000 to 20,000 words. Would I need a literature review? Yes. You would need to consider how what you're trying to say is a contribution has not been done in the way that you are proposing in the literature. Do I still have to defend it? Yes, you still have to defend it like a normal viva, a viva or a viva voce is part of the process in most universities. So what are the benefits and the disbenefits? You could start, even though normally it's a retrospective, you could start now and say, I'll plan ahead, and if I publish 1 paper per year, or if you're really good, 2 papers per year, in 4 years, you would have 4 to 5 papers, and you have built a publication record while thinking of doing a PhD. Already peer-reviewed. If in 5 years you've got 4, 5, 6 papers, you already have a publication record. So that already opens up job prospects. So it's a great way of doing it slowly. The other positive is if you decide, I'm not doing really well, I'm doing 1 paper every 3 years. Well, you still have the publications. If in 6 years you've got 2 papers, you still have publications. So it's a great way of planning with an end goal. And I wish somebody had given me that advice years ago. Instead of me enrolling in a part-time PhD, that I focused myself and I wrote in a particular area. And, being in hospitality, it's very easy. You could have written anything. You could have had papers in sustainability in hospitality. You could have had papers in staff development in hospitality. One might seem completely unrelated things, but you could merge and consider all of those in an area called, I don't know, luxury hospitality and developments in luxury hospitality. So you could find a way of putting them all together and presenting them as a comprehensive piece of work that does contribute knowledge to a specific area. What are the benefits? Well, not every university supports this approach. You need to have these publications, so that can be tough, especially for your first paper. So find a mentor, find somebody who's willing to co-write with you, and you need to ensure that coherence. So even though my examples were a little bit extreme, consider how do they join together in a more obvious way. Some questions that you might have is, do I need to be the single author? Not necessarily. My advice would be that you lead it and you have a clear contribution. And if you're leading the paper, normally you are the first author. Can I do this from the start of a PhD? If you have started a PhD and you're thinking, it's not working for me, if you can convert some of the chapter you may have written into papers, yes, it's a possibility. But I would normally say start by publishing first and then later see if you have the strength to continue publishing and then put them together for a PhD. Are all journals acceptable? Yes, normally. You would expect that they are reputable journals. If your university, and that might worth a little bit more of a digging, requires to have some ranking of the journals, like in business, some universities are using the ABS ranking and they might say, oh, it has to be 2-star journals and above. I haven't really seen that much detail in most universities, but it may very well happen. So, doing a PhD by publication can be a powerful way to build your research profile and to get a doctorate in a more structured and output-driven way. It's not for everyone, so think about it, weigh your goals, weigh your timeline, and move on carefully. The beauty of it is you don't have to enroll, and you don't enroll from the very, very beginning. So you have plenty of time to decide whether this is something that will work for you or not, without the guilt of having to quit a PhD when you have enrolled, let's say, in a part-time one, and 2 to 3 years later you find you're not making real progress and it becomes game over. So if my thoughts have helped you, give the video a thumbs up, subscribe, because next time I will be talking about how a PhD by publication is structured, give you a guide and give you some of ideas if you are at that stage and you're thinking of applying to do a PhD by publication. Have a wonderful week. See you again.